All right, I think we're live. George. All right, I think we're live.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to everyone who's watching. This is Region 4 virtual panels. This is one of our first of all our 4 panels that we'll be hosting this year, starting with the finance zone. We have here currently Joshua Thomas, who is our treasurer, and we have Amari Irvin, who is our assistant treasurer. And hosting is I myself, R4 Publications Chair, George Jemison, and we have Malik Hughes, our R4 our Engineering Diversity Chair. So once again, thank you for everyone who's watching. We will get started with our panels. I'll pass it over to Malik.
All right, hello, hey everyone. So basically the way this is gonna work is we are gonna be asking the board some questions, kind of going back and forth, and then we will open it up to the membership to throw questions into the chat box. Any questions that you would like to ask the REB leaders, basically about their position or how to become a member, anything basically that you want to know, that will be your opportunity to ask questions. So first, I guess we could start with Josh. Why did you choose to run for the treasurer position or apply for the position?
Yeah, great question. So originally, I was honestly nervous about actually applying for this position. It's something that I was a chapter president, so I was thinking first, hey, can you guys mute your thing? I hear the back. Just throw me off. Hello, check. Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, I was chapter president, and I was, like I said, pretty nervous about actually running for a regional position. It seemed a little daunting as far as could I actually manage it while I'm a student in school. I was about to graduate last May, so I just finished up May of 2017, and I was about to start grad school. I didn't know if that was actually going to be able to, if I was going to be able to balance my time with doing research, doing classes with grad school, with not knowing what grad school is really going to be like. So, but with all that said, I still ran for the position because I've always had a heart for NSBE and just the true mission of what NSBE stands for. And I knew as being treasurer, I'd be able to have a unique capability of basically providing the blood for NSBE to function. I always use that metaphor as blood because I think programs is the heart of the region, but I believe finance zone, we are the blood that provides the heart of life. So I just wanted to be able to also build my techniques. Amari, don't look at me like that. But I was trying to build my extra capabilities outside of the board as well. So being on the finance, I've been able to finance the little bit of money that I have as well. Being a broke grad student, I've been able to budget myself a lot more efficiently, having spreadsheets for my own budget as well. So I've learned Excel more than I've ever learned in the past. So it's been a true blessing as far as just the things I've been able to learn. But I say all that, I did run because I saw this being a capability of maintaining leadership abilities that I've had and also growing my leadership skills.
Yeah. So how did you get time being able to do the research in grad school and all that?
Yeah, so honestly, it has been good. There's definitely times I know preparing for FRC that it was hard at times, but I knew at the end of the tunnel there's a reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it helped me stay up a little bit later at some nights where I had to get some extra work done, but I have been able to still balance it. What's unique about being on the regional board than the chapter board is that the regional board, we obviously are a little bit more virtual. Right now, we have two people in Chicago, one person in Detroit, and myself that's in Akron. And with that, it's pretty interesting that we all basically stay in contact with each other, whether it be virtually. But on a chapter level, it's a daily consistent thing that you always are thinking about. So on a regional level, it's kind of, in my comparison with grad school and undergrad, it's a little bit more like grad school than undergrad, because undergrad you have like 5 classes to worry about consistently, where sorry, undergrad you have that, and then in grad school you are a little bit like, I had 2 classes last semester, 3 classes this semester, so it's a little bit more spread out, and just, yeah, you get things done still, but it's a little bit, you basically set your own schedule with it instead of it just being a daily thing. That makes sense.
Okay, and then Amari. So why did you choose to run for assistant treasurer?
I chose to run for assistant treasurer uh, because I was treasurer last year. I was the region 4 treasurer for 2016, 2017. And I ran into a lot of problems that I didn't anticipate running into. I just feel like if I would have had more experience on the board, I could have better prepared for them. And since this is my second year on the board, I enjoy being in the finance zone, but I did graduate, so I wouldn't have been able to run for treasurer anymore because it's an elected position. So I ran for assistant treasurer so that I could help with preventing some of the problems that I experienced last year, and also just to revamp some of the processes we have now as far as how we distribute money to chapters, like scholarships and chapter relief. I wanted to make those processes run more smoothly and also get students money in a timely manner. And so I felt like I could do both of those things and also assist Josh in any problems he may run into and try to prevent those problems from occurring this year.
Okay. And so Josh, I guess for both of you guys, how has that experience been for the finance zone from last year to this year? How has it been an improvement? Has you been on the board last year really helped the finance zone this year?
Wait, is that question for me or Mari?
I guess both of you guys in general, because
Mari, you want to answer
I'll
first?
answer because I was on the board last year. I think I think it is better. I still think it could be improved more, but I think we've improved from last year. Just, I know some of the problems I ran into, Josh has not run into. And of course, there are always going to be unforeseen circumstances or situations that are out of our control. But I think we've been able to get control of most of those situations and just better handling money and keeping track of it. And if our students members aren't getting money, we know where it is and how long it's going to take to get there. So I think we've better managed from last year.
Yeah, and I was not on the board last year, but on the terms of just having someone who was on the board last year, actually having 3 people in the finance zone that were on the board last year has been a tremendous help. With Jada having the role of FRC chair, but then last year she was our finance chair, gave us a lot of unique perspectives, and kind of what Amari just said, we didn't have to run into the same issues that we possibly ran into last year, just since she already knew and how to help Matt. And then having Amari, who was treasurer, and having my position last year, I was able to ask her certain questions over the summer, and I was really truly trying to understand what I was doing as a treasurer. Honestly still learning some things, to be honest, because it's a continuing learning lesson for any position that you gain. But having Amari, I was able to ask questions. I was able to just ask her to do things, and I knew she already knew how to do it. So it was very unique in that aspect. So just having an assistant treasurer in general was already a help, but having someone who was a treasurer last year was even more beneficial.
Okay. Hi, Jada. We just have Jada just joined the call. So, why did you choose to run for finance chairperson?
FRC chairperson, but
Sorry,
it's
FRC chairperson.
um
Sorry.
I chose to run for FRC chairperson to try a more challenging role, I think, than last year. Last year I had finance chair, and that was already challenging. We had a great finance zone in REB last year. So being in that environment, that definitely pushed me to my strengths and things that I wasn't sure that I was able to do. Running for FRC chair was kind of the same, just a different level. And I knew going into it the amount of help I had within the finance zone, which made me a lot more comfortable. But yeah, and I love being on the REB, so that was also great.
All right, George, you want to ask the next round of questions?
All right. Thank you, Jada, for that answer. So our next question is, how has being a NESB leader impacted other areas of your life? So this question is to help members understand the implications of being a leader. And so we will start with Josh.
Cool. So yeah, being on the REB has opened up my eyes of just because my dream is to work at a worldwide consulting firm someday. So I knew having the ability to communicate, because communication is huge when it comes to the REB. Obviously, is big on the chapter level as well, but on the REB, it's even more imperative because you have to communicate with people that aren't not in the same city or state as you. So I knew with my goal of wanting to work for a consulting firm someday that I wanted to be able to have that capability of practicing, because I think being on REB, yeah, you're doing free labor, but it's also practice that you're able to do. I know being on as a treasurer, I'm able to practice managing a six-figure budget. So it's just kind of unique to be able to do that as a student, as a mid 20-year-old, being able to have that practice to just do that and then put it on my resume as well. And I always say NESB is not just a resume builder, and having this position is not just a resume builder, but it's also a character builder. And I feel like I've definitely gained a lot of character. I think even going back to just me being just a regular member within NESB before I became a chapter president, I feel as though I was a boy and then I became a man, and then now being on the REB, I'm like a Superman. So no, I'm joking, but I am honestly still growing, and so it's just been incredible through this 9-month stint of being on the board, just learning and just continuing to meet new people as well who are awesome.
Thank you, Josh. All right, so we'll move on to Amari. Same question. How has being a NESB leader impacted other areas of your life?
For me, being an SB leader has impacted other areas. Mainly, I guess, like my communication skills. It just really took me out of my comfort zone because I'm a pretty reserved and quiet person. And being a regional leader, it doesn't really allow you to stay in a comfort zone like that just because you interact with so many people often at conferences, and like for me regarding like chapter relief and scholarships, I have to talk to people. And so it really took me out of my comfort zone, which is great because I think it helped build my communication skills. And it also helped me with responsibility. So Handling money both last year and this year is a big deal regardless of who you're doing it for. And it just really made me have to be on top of my game all the time, have to keep record of everything, which made me more organized and also more responsible. I felt like the board had to and still does have to depend on the finance zone to bring in money and spend money responsibly. And having just such a big responsibility, you have to take it serious. And if you just be coming from a chapter level role to a regional level role, it's just a lot more responsibility. So I definitely say communication skills, responsibility, organization, and even just networking. I had 2 internships and multiple offers for internships and full-time jobs, all because of NSBE. And being a leader just really amplified that. So it's helped with networking and like my career as well.
Thank you, Amari. It's a great answer. So next we will move on to Jada. Same question. How has being a NSBE leader impacted other areas of your life?
Okay. NSBE leadership definitely has helped me. I feel like in more ways than it has not. For instance, working full time, having to multitask with different tasks I'm doing, and finding out what to prioritize and what not to. That definitely has helped from that standpoint. I would definitely say, especially having to plan a conference. I wasn't really sure of the things that it would entail, and seeing a project from start to finish is engineering in itself. Just how I plan stuff at work. So things that I learned during the conference planning process really helped me in my everyday now. And then going back to just like believing in myself, especially when we are usually underrepresented, and like Amari said, helping with my communication skills. It doesn't matter who I'm talking to, whether it's someone on the same level or levels ahead of me. I feel the confidence and stuff to talk to them, and those values and little things have been instilled through NSBE. And NSBE also gave me a family. I mean, the REB, we're close. The REB from last year, we're still close. I envision us always being close, and always, it's a different level of family, and that's what I enjoy about NSBE.
Okay, so we can move on to the next question. What other organizations are you a part of? So this could be within school or within the corporate setting that you're in. And how have you been able to balance kind of those responsibilities with your NSBE responsibilities? So this question is meant to encourage members to carefully consider their time requirements with their NSBE leadership and expose them to tools and resources that can help them manage their time more effectively. So we could start off with Josh.
Yeah, so other organizations I am a part of currently is I'm sitting on the board of trustees for my university as a student trustee, and that sometimes can take a lot of time out of my day, depending on the day, because I get invited now to a lot of different meetings, whether it be faculty senate meetings or university council meetings, random luncheons or dinners and stuff. But I've also been able to balance that by learning how to say no. I very much have learned and value that word no, where you don't want to necessarily overdo yourself. Because yeah, especially when I was getting prepared for FRC and helping Jada out a lot in October for that, and final preparations for FRC, there are things I knew I had to put at a back burner when it came to other organizations, but I still was very much so active and trying to do as much as I can. I didn't want to just say no just because I needed to go, I don't know, watch TV or something. It was saying no because I had actually other things to do. There's another organization I'm a part of called Campus Focused, which is a ministry on my campus. And I'm very much still active in that. But last year I was actually a small group leader. And this year I knew being on the REB and being the student trustee, I knew I had to say no to something if I was going to still focus on school and focus on research, because focusing on research and school is what's helping me actually pay for school. So if I don't get the grades, then I get kicked out of school. If I don't do research, then my advisor stops funding me to go to school. So I knew I had to limit myself to just doing two things. So I had to actually say no to being a small group leader, but I still go to the small groups and still am very much a part of that organization as well. Because yeah, my faith comes first above all. So yeah, I'm still active in those things. I've been able to balance them just by, like I mentioned, just saying no and just knowing what I actually can handle. And if something got too out of hand, I asked for help. I think that's the biggest thing, is when I would struggle with something, I would ask Amari for something. I would start to delegate a little bit more. And still I'm honestly learning to delegate. That was something I was never really used to doing. So yeah, I think delegation and then saying no are the biggest ways to balance out everything that you do outside of NSBE.
Teamwork is very valuable when things get very busy and hectic. Okay, so Amari, what other organizations are you a part of, and how have you been able to balance those responsibilities with NSBE responsibilities?
Right now, I'm working full time. I work for Ford, and I just started in June, and I'm in a Ford college graduate program. And so, just being in that, it was kind of an adjustment because the rotation I'm in now is a lot of traveling, so I'm never really in the office, or I don't know when I'm going to be in the office. So a few times since I've started already, I've planned to dedicate some work time to NSBE, and it just doesn't work because I'm not even in the office. So it's been an adjustment. But even when I was a student, I felt like it was easier to manage then. Even with school, I felt like it was easier to balance my school life and my NSBE life, just because it was a little more set. I knew when everything was going to be. There was a syllabus. So it's been an adjustment, but it hasn't been that bad. I'm also in a sorority, but I mean, I've been in the sorority for a few years, so that's just an adjustment I've already made between NSBE and my sorority. So balancing responsibilities, really, I just try to do a lot on the weekends or when I get off of work. And that's been helping. Keeping a calendar, I know helps for some people. I try to keep a calendar. I always forget, but I think that works as well. And then also, I'm in a group me for everything. And so if there's ever anything coming up or someone needs something from me right away, it's usually put in a group me and I can do it right then and there, or I can put it on the list of things to do for that day. So I would say that balance, it's been working out for me. It's not something I would be concerned about if I were to want to run for a regional position.
Okay, thank you. And then Jada, what other organizations are you a part of, and how have you been able to balance those responsibilities?
Okay, so I'm a part of I work for Navistar International Corporation, so I'm a part of Navistar Young Professionals. I serve on their executive board as well, which is another time commitment. And when it got to be more towards FRC and the the last month before FRC, especially those last 2 weeks, everyone on the REB knows it's crunch time. So I was really vocal with my job, with my other organization, about my responsibility that I had going into the position months ahead, which helped when it did get time to crunch times, because some of my time that I would use on my other organization was kind of limited due to NSBE. But again, communication made it that much easier, and people who had to take over my role while I was focusing on NSBE, it wasn't an issue. Definitely the whole balance thing is definitely something that took some time. I think being on the REB last year, for me personally, it was harder managing everything in my last semester of school, and I was taking 18 hours, and I had undergrad research. I also have a child, so she has all her own agenda that's always usually before everything. And so now that, and I guess me and Amari are probably opposite. She travels a lot. I don't travel as much, and so I feel like now that I work full time, it's easier to fit in NSBE because I have a consistent schedule with that that's not as demanding as school was. So I use my calendar, my planner. That's my go-to for everything, pretty much. Any meetings, I work out a lot, and so that was one of the things that one of my trainers has told me: make sure whatever you plan to do, you schedule it in. Don't change it. And so if I knew I had NSBE meetings, I would put those in my calendar. If I knew I wanted to work out, I would put that in my calendar. When I was in classes, I would put my study time in my calendar. And just that's how I use that to balance and not get thrown off. I also put like free time, literally my whole day in my calendar. And that was what helped me. It's definitely not unmanageable. I think anytime you go into a position such as one as the REB, and our main thing is FRC, whether I was FRC chair last year as finance chair, any position on the REB, it will be a couple weeks that you definitely will feel the stress of being on the REB. But compared to the entire position itself and the full year that you serve, it's very manageable.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of just diverse responsibilities that we all have on the board. Josh being on the board of trustees, Amari, being in corporate, we both Amari and Jada within organizations within a corporate setting. And then even like with myself, I'm a chapter president and on the REB. And so there's a lot of like things that we do outside of the REB, but we still can able to devote time to it as long as we just effectively manage our time. So I think that just goes to show you like how diverse we all are. George. Okay. I don't know where George is. So I'll just ask the next question. So starting with Josh, how does your position help members excel academically, succeed professionally, or positively impact the community? Otherwise, how does your position support our mission?
Yeah, so going back to my metaphor of the blood, I think that the finance zone really does provide the funds so that all the functions can actually take place. If it wasn't for the funds, we wouldn't be able to have an FRC. If we didn't have an FRC, we wouldn't be able to have a career fair. If we didn't have a career fair, a lot of people who got jobs and internships at the career fair would not have those. So the biggest thing that we do provide is the backbone behind everything you see. If it wasn't for my position as treasurer, we wouldn't have scholarships or chapter relief. So there's just a lot of things that we don't necessarily always think about. But yeah, money talks, and if it wasn't for money, sometimes we would not be able to be a functioning organization. So as far as helping the mission, at first glance or surface level, it doesn't necessarily look like we help the mission, but then you look into it a little bit deeper, and just the foundation and how we actually are able to support the mission is based off of the finance zone, I believe. So that's my answer for that.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll switch it up a bit. Jada, how does being FRC chair support the mission?
So being FRC chair helps support the mission by almost what Josh said. My position also is kind of high level. So being in charge of FRC and the FRC chairperson, it's everyone else on the REB who's programming, especially the program zones that they're trying to put on during this conference, that all succeed. I mean, that all impact the mission directly. Like impacting the community. We packed homeless kits at FRC. We have a huge pre-collegiate initiative portion within it, and working with our PCI chair, our torch chair on those events, and then succeeding professionally, working with the finance chair on just the career fair in itself, and then excelling academically just by how we are able to have different competitions, whether they're directly engineering related or helping us in skills that are not the typical ones that we use in the career fair, again, brought to us by our wonderful program zone. So my position doesn't really oversee, I just help them to coordinate their programming that all directly impacts the mission.
Can you also speak on behalf of finance chair? How does that position really help with the funding and just the functions of help us program FRC?
Definitely. So a lot of people, I guess, don't really know what the finance chair is responsible for, but the finance chair is responsible for bringing in funds for the entire region, not just for FRC. So when you guys need chapter relief, scholarships, everything that we use to help support you guys individually, that's what we use, is the money that the finance chair helps raise through corporate solicitation. And then also to put on an FRC that you guys, I hope, enjoy. That's all through the help and the funding from corporate solicitation, which our finance chair is responsible for. So this finance chair, kind of like what Josh says, without the finance zone, we really can't live out the missions that we intend to, because we need money to do all those, which the finance chair directly does that.
Okay. And then Amari, how does being assistant treasurer help support the mission?
I think my connection is really bad. Okay, I think my connection is bad. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. So I think the assistant treasurer position is really great with this, because it's like I'm responsible for chapter relief, which the whole goal is to get our members to so they can be exposed to opportunities where they can excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community. So I've been really trying to work on making sure we get as much money as we can to our chapters before the conference happens, so that they can afford to go. And also I am the chair for the scholarship committee, and so excelling academically. And then we also added new scholarships this year that touch on the other aspects of the mission statement, such as positively impacting the community and succeeding professionally. So I think my position is pretty aligned with the mission statement. And what I've been doing this year is just really trying to work with the finance zone and the scholarship committee to make sure that we're doing that to the best of our ability through those two like applications, I guess, for example. And then also just the finance zone in general, like Josh said, we're responsible for really keeping the programs running, which are based on those different aspects of the mission statement as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Last question before we open it up to the membership. So please, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat box. But last question for the REB. What advice would you give to someone considering running for your position? So let's start with you, Amari.
I would say run. Great position. It's like the hardest to fill. I don't know why. But if there's something you really want to work on, whether it be finance related or not, I think being in this position gives you a great opportunity to do so. My main responsibility as the assistant treasurer is to assist the treasurer and the rest of the finance zone. But if they don't need any assistance at the time, I can utilize that time to work on like a special project that I really think we as a regional board can do better with. That's actually the responsibility of like the national assistant treasurer is to pick a special project and work on it. So I think that being the regional assistant treasurer, you can do the same thing. And also, if there's anything you don't like about scholarships or about chapter relief, the amounts, the actual application, this would be your chance to change it. And if you don't think we're giving out enough money, then you can assist the finance chair in raising more. Like, I think you have like a lot of power in this position, just because your responsibilities aren't confined to one thing. Like, it's assisting the treasurer, assisting the finance zone in whatever you think that is. So I would say run and don't be afraid to. It's also an appointed position, so you don't have to be in school, obviously, because I'm not, to be in that position. I would say it's not as stressful as some of the other positions for sure. So if stress is something you're worried about, but you want to join the finance zone on the regional level, then that would be a great position to get started in. So, and if you have any questions, you can always call me and talk about it. That'll be my advice.
Can you briefly just speak on the difference between an appointed position and an elected position?
Yeah, so an elected position is what it sounds like. It's elected by the region. So if you've ever been to National Convention, it's where all the senators cast a vote on behalf of their chapter as to who they would want in that position. And that's where you have to submit an application before National Convention and speak on your platform and everything at National Convention, do a questions and answers, and then chapters vote through their Senate. And an appointed position is you apply after National Convention, and just the board appoints you to that position. The board will talk about it, and the chair will appoint you to that position. I don't have like the technical definitions, but I just know that you cannot be in school. You don't have to be in school to be in an appointed position, but you do have to be in school to be in an elected position.
Thank you. Jada, so what advice would you give to someone considering running for both FRC chairperson and finance chairperson?
Okay. I would say if you're thinking about running for a position, do it. The only reason I said that is I remember two nationals ago, I had kind of thought about being on the REB. I was always so intimidated by it, and just about everyone running on it. And I thought I could do it, and it took the vision of someone else seeing me and nominating me on the spot. I remember running on the floor at nationals to actually start envisioning I can do it. But once I got in the position, it, no joke, was the best decision I ever made, especially NSBE wise. I was always so big in my chapter, serving on my chapter. Chapter leadership is amazing. And I didn't think it could get any better than that. But when I took it to a next level and seeing the impact that I could have at a regional level rather than a chapter level, it really just gave a burst of energy. It helps just everyone on the REB. We are all there for the mission. So everyone's there to help you. Finance chair this year, he was a little scared to be in it. My job was to definitely make sure that he had someone so he didn't feel lost. And I was there. And I think he would definitely say that helped. I know he'll be willing to help next year. He's really passionate about NSBE. Same with FRC chair. FRC chair, it was definitely a little more work than finance chair, but in general, it was amazing. Everyone goes to FRCs, everyone goes to conventions, and to actually have your name as being the chair of it is an amazing feeling, to see all your hard work for all these months and to put together a project literally from start to finish that you can affect over hundreds of people is amazing. So if you guys are thinking about it, again, I will be around next year. I'll be on the national CPC, but you guys can definitely still reach out to me. Just like last year, NSBE holds a really big place in my heart. And even if you're thinking about running for it, any questions, I'm here. So yeah, run for it.
Thank you. And then last, Josh, what advice would you give to someone running for treasurer?
Yeah, so I'll just piggyback off of what Jada said and literally just do it. I always kind of like look back into certain parts of my life, and I always say, like, if I didn't do this, would I actually be the person I am today? And if I didn't run a year ago for this position, I honestly don't think I would be the same person. I don't think I would have the same skill sets that I've gained over this past year. So don't believe the lie in your mind that you can't do it. I think the lie that just whispers in your ear that you can't do something because you're too busy to whatever is just a lie that keeps us from actually, succeeding more than we are capable or think that we're capable of doing. So the continuing growth is just ignoring that lie in our heads and just actually stepping out of our comfort zone, kind of like what Amari said too. I have definitely stepped so far out of my comfort zone that I actually forgot what comfort feels like. So yeah, just honestly think about it and do it, because it's just a life-changing opportunity that I've done. And luckily I ran unopposed, so I guess no one else had a choice but to vote for me maybe. But I also like to think that they don't regret the decision they made. And yeah, it's just changed me as a person. So I know it will also change you if you're thinking about running for this position or any other position on the REB. I know you'll learn a lot more than you thought you would learn. Just working with people in general, just the soft skills that you learn. If you don't take time as we're young and a lot of us still being in school, have the opportunity to still learn these soft skills that are going to help us a lot more when we get into the workforce. I know Jada and Amari can probably both attest to that. That has probably helped them tremendously in just the workforce alone. I know that just still being in school, that in my internships, I've just been able to get internships because of my soft skills. So if you struggle right now with communication or just having certain soft skills, then the REB is still just a great place for you to learn that. And you're going to just see a year from now, like, wow, I grew a lot. So yeah, just run so that you can grow.
Absolutely. Also, I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to consider running for the REB, but let's just say if you didn't, you could always apply to be a volunteer. I know the conference planning committee is always looking for volunteers, and that's just still a way to get exposed to what it's like to be behind the scenes and see what the REB runs like. So that's another way to still get involved if you don't want to actually run for an elected or appointed position. So there's always still ways to get involved. George, do you want to now open it up to the comments in the live section?
Yes, thank you everyone for your answers. So now we will open up to questions and the comments. And so first up, we have how much of the RB's time during their term is used on strategizing for the future and creating a multi-year impact? And if there isn't, why do you believe there isn't? And so I don't know who wants to start. I can just jump in.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. How much of the REB's time during their term is used on strategizing for the future and creating a multi-year impact? And if there isn't, why do you believe there isn't?
Okay, so I'll say the biggest thing that we plan for outside of just our current year is for the future FRCs, the future RLCs. And also we have the unique ability right now on the REB to plan a little bit for the next national convention because it's going to be in Region 4 next year. So that's been like the biggest thing of just, okay, we need to now contract out FRC for 2019 and everything. And we think in our heads, just like sometimes 2019, that's like so far away, but 2017 just flew by. Honestly, don't even really remember it much. And then before we know, we're going to be in 2019 FRC and it's just going to be like, whoa. But yeah, that's the biggest thing I would say that we plan ahead of time. Outside of that, we are kind of more so focused on the now as well of just, for instance, in the finance zone, what scholarships can we do? We do think about what scholarships we can do in the future. So one thing that as I balance the budget some more, I'll be working with the scholarship committee, Amari and Nicole as our secretary, and also our academic excellence chair to figure out how much funds we have left over that instead of going into the reserves, which we won't be able to use those, to then maybe do like an easier scholarship opportunity for the membership to gain. So doing things like that is things that I think about in the future. It's like, okay, how can we actually help people financially in the future? So hope that helped your question. I don't know if you guys want to add on to that as well, Jada and Murray.
Yeah, I'll add on. I'd say we really, I guess technically we should start planning for the future, like day one or after our first conference, which for us is a regional transition meeting, and then like a national leadership conference. But we have like a transition plan, and the transition plan, we do it for our successor, and it's really set up to where you should be adding to it every month. I'm not so much this year for me, and maybe it's because I've already heard this spiel, but last year I really felt like it was just really emphasized, and it might have been my position as treasurer, that after every conference, after every mishap that happened along the way, that I document it and write it down so that my successor would read my notes and be able to plan ahead and adjust for their year and so forth. So I feel like if the REB is filling out their transition reports, which of course we all are, then we are always planning for the future because we're always documenting situations as they happen, and even possibly writing down suggestions as to how they can be avoided in the future. But I will say a large part of our planning for next year happens after FRC. So like between now and between convention, just because FRC is our biggest event. And before FRC, we're putting a lot of resources and time and commitment into it. And once FRC passes, we kind of have a little more time to work on other aspects of our position, which include making it a better
an easier transition for our successor. So, technical answer throughout the entire year. I think realistic answer is once FRC is over, up until national convention.
And Jada, did you want to chime in? So we don't have any more. So if anyone still has any questions, we have about 7 minutes left. And so I'll go ahead and ask a question. So if anyone still has any questions, leave them in the comments and we will be answering them. So my question to you all is there anything that you feel that needs to be improved as far as something you wish you could have done this year that you may not have gotten a chance to do, or something you wish you would have done? Is there, if any, is there anything that you would say is important for someone fulfilling the role after you? And so you all can answer it at any order.
Okay.
The hardest question ever. I'll let you start, Dana.
Okay. So I think things that anyone on the board was on last year, the little things we definitely tried to improve on this year, as far as like planning wise. It seemed like last year, and most of the board was new last year, we kind of started FRC planning later than we did this year. And this year, my goal was to start as soon as possible. So like the first week in June through FRC, we were having our CPC meetings, and which definitely helped. However, to help improve upon that, it would still be just working with our different corporate contacts way ahead of the times and getting contracts and everything and walkthroughs done. One thing that was a huge thing to work with this year, and I'm sure Josh can contest as well, we had to redo our FRC contract numerous times. And that goes back to planning for the future. So FRCs are planned 2 years in advance. And so 2 years ago, I don't know, I guess they didn't think of the little things that we typically do. And so as a board this year and as a finance zone, it's definitely our job to make sure that we're setting up 2 years from now so that they don't have to redo their contracts, because it costs us a lot of money to keep redoing them. And then one thing that always I wish was different a little is REB communication, especially after FRC. Everyone's burnt out, and it takes us a while to get back in the swing of things. So I don't know if it's a way that we could, for future planning, try to alleviate the burnout. Maybe start planning for FRC. I don't know how you would plan earlier because we have RLC that we're focused on, but to try to alleviate a lot of the burnouts that we feel after conferences, because we love being together. It's just, it's hard after going through a lot of stress with each other to really come out on top and get back in our game, especially after a huge conference like FRC. So if I could change that, since Matt's not here, I'll just say, if you guys are thinking about running for finance chair next year, corporate solicitation packets are huge. That's how we get all of our funding. I know last year we had the same issue that we had this year with corporate communication packets going out late, or actually getting to us late from our national counterparts. And so that's something that is still on the top of the priority list. How do we do that? I know the transition comes in March through May, but if we have to get all this funding by FRC, the packets have to go out earlier. So finding a way to, I guess, better organize our calendars so that we are more efficient.
there any other question before I answer this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have actually we have time for one more question, and so we'll wrap up our panels with our last commenting question, if that's fine with you all. So our last question is, what can Region 4 do to push ourselves towards contributing to our portion of graduating 10,000 engineers? Let me repeat that, I'm sorry. What can Region 4 do to push ourselves towards contributing our portion of graduates for the 2025 goals set by the society? And I'll let you guys answer that in any order.
The biggest thing for me, so yeah, we have like that big dream and that big goal, that big vision of graduating 10,000 by 2025. I think the biggest thing as Region 4 that we can do is start seeing ourselves as part of that change as well. If we each actually see ourselves as being able to make an impact in that, and not just saying like, oh, that's, national counterparts' responsibility. They have to, get all these initiatives going. They have to be responsible for this. Or looking at the REB like, oh, they have to be responsible for it. Or if you're a chapter member, oh, the chapter president, or, they have to be responsible for it. If we all collectively actually bought into that dream, that vision, that goal, then I think it is actually something that we can possibly do. If we don't buy in, and if there's, all the people that are part of NSBE are just saying like this isn't possible, then it's not going to happen, because it takes each and every one of us to go out to schools and to excite new students about engineering. It takes each and every one of us to tell family members, cousins, little brothers, sisters, that you can be an engineer. They should be engineers. So it takes, I think, a army to actually have this mission get done. It's not going to just take chapter leaders or REB leaders or national leaders to get it done.
I kind of was gonna say what Josh said, just because it's something that our national chair Matt Nelson and our regional chair Shelby Prater talk about is having like foot soldiers who can advocate for NSBE, and I think that's the really big part. Like us as regional leaders, I know what we can do is maybe host a workshop or talk to our counterparts more often to give them like a spiel or something that they can say, an elevator pitch, I guess, that they can pitch to people who are in NSBE but not really active, and also people who are engineers on campus but not even a part of NSBE. And so if we can give them the tools to better advocate for NSBE, then I think we can contribute to the 10,000.
Okay, I'll go off kind of what both of them just said. It's definitely a goal that we as a regional board and even the NEB, we keep trying to push. But at the end of the day, it's everyone's responsibility. Like Matt Nelson and Shelby, when they show like the demographics of what it takes to get this, it starts with the children, and especially Region 4, we have a lot of huge cities around our region that have so many students that we could be definitely reaching out to, and that we're not. And those are what is really going to get us to the 10,000. And so when PCI, I feel like to college people, I sound like I'm not just from there, but it sounds kind of just like, why do I care? I'm just trying to graduate. But if this is all of our goal is to graduate this many, we have to put those people into the streamline to graduate. And so going out to school, I know I'm guilty of it. In undergrad, I didn't, when there was opportunities for Walk for Education and stuff, that's like the least populated thing. But then when we go to a conference, there's 1,000 of us. So we have enough manpower to go out to these schools, but we're just not doing it. So definitely looking at each chapter's accountability portion. What can you do? If you don't have elementary schools in the area to reach out to the children, then look at the community colleges in the area. There's almost one community college by every big public university. And so it's things like that, because the junior colleges, they have people who want to study engineering as well. And so that's where they're streamlined to getting the resources for them to be successful to graduate. So I think this is definitely not just a regional, how do we do this? I feel like this comes up in every conversation when we're talking about NSBE business, and as a society, it's really trying to see how can we be more accountable for our goal that we've set.
Okay. So I want to thank everyone for joining our panels. Please join us next week for our membership panel to be February 15th, starting at 6 o'clock Central Time. For more updates on that, please follow our R4 social media pages at R4 NSBE. Also follow that for any updates on the convention. Thank you, everyone, for joining. You all can have a great night. See you next week.